COVID-19 Hong Kong masks. This is one of the millions of the videos already shared online. I do it for those who watched the one weeks ago made in Hungarian and were requesting to have one in English as well. In that I was telling you the story how we actually managed in Hong Kong. At the beginning, around the very first case, we had people starting to wear surgical masks, which is quite usual in Hong Kong. Moving to Hong Kong, that was the very first thing that we saw as a difference, that people were very, very hygienic. So whenever somebody felt that they are getting sick or they didn't feel well, the first thing that we see people wearing is a surgical mask to prevent others to catch anything from them, which is really good. We also tried it in Europe, like when we had traveled with our children and the kids started to sneeze or cough after the flights, we put it on to prevent others to get sick. And I remember the looks we got, but we just decided that that works, and it actually worked very well because we saw that those were easily getting infected in a big family gathering who didn't wear masks, so children were passing on sicknesses between each other. Right, so the beginning in Hong Kong, we saw the people wearing the masks. The masks were running out of the stocks really fast. In the first couple of days, all the masks were gone from the stores. So then we started to see people wearing every other kind of solutions. I remember I was wearing scarf for quite a while. Like this is an example of that, like a bandana. That is a round scarf that you can put around the neck and you can pull up on your face if you need it. The only important thing wearing a mask is to always remember which is the front, which is the back. And the most important thing is every single time to wash. When returning home, whenever we were outside, we were washing it, and we are washing it still today. So I know exactly on a bandana where is the back. I know exactly on my scarf which is the front that I was using if it's a scarf. Since then, we also, just like everybody else, managed to get some better quality masks. These are, for example, with some really help to breathe, so it's not so suffocating when you have it on your face. Important thing that these are sealing the face really well, not like a surgical mask, because a surgical mask, once it's on the nose, you have the wire, you can set the wire to sit well on the face, but on the side it still lets things to enter, or over next to the nose you can still kind of have any bacteria coming in or virus coming in. For us, honestly, if somebody sneezes on us or somebody coughs on us, we know this is not to protect. But we also know, could it be even a N95 that wouldn't protect perfectly? It's more about protecting ourselves from ourselves, and I would understand that that's probably is the main understanding here. That's why people are satisfied with wearing any kind of mask or surgical mask, not necessarily the N95s. We see actually foreigners starting to really wear N95s. But the point is to really not touch ourselves, not touch our nose or mouth or ears or eyes, not rub it, and just simply having the masks over our face. That reminds us to not lift our hands further up. So the moment I feel like, oh, it's itchy, then I'm not going to just go on rubbing, because I just gonna practice this little bit of self control over my itchiness, or over, you know, just the bad habit that I'm having. Actually, I would recommend that you just keep watching how many times I'm touching my eyes, my ears, my nose during this video, which we all do unconsciously. There are studies saying that that we manage to do it quite often, just even in 1 minute. So the important thing is that we understand the mask is not something that is going to protect us directly, but is helping us to prevent ourselves to infect ourselves through touching and holding things in our hand and then transmitting the disease in case, which actually was not very lucky that the discussion went towards masks are not very useful. We also understand this discussion went towards protecting the stocks for medical stuff, which is, yeah, definitely correct. We appreciate that we were lucky enough to live in surrounded countries where this was kind of openly handled, and there were announcements that were made about that the medical stock is, please reserve it for medical stuff, don't buy it up from them. That was kind of frankly taught, not necessarily here, not necessarily in Hong Kong. We also had a communication when it directly came to don't need to wear masks. We also had seated a committee at a press conference where our prime leader was the only one not wearing mask. Everybody else in his own stuff was actually wearing the mask, telling they probably are not very well. But we overcame all these things, and people just didn't change their minds. They kept up on the habit. Then we had, of course, a big number of foreigners and students coming back from different countries who were overseas. And around the middle of March, we had a big number of them appearing on the streets without wearing the mask. Definitely the numbers went up and jumped high, not only because of the transmitted cases, not only the imported cases transferred back to Hong Kong, but also because of probably a local spike coming back again through these cases. You can see the numbers if you go on Hong Kong's website on different counters. Then you see how Hong Kong managed to stay below even 120 for quite long, over 1.5 months long. There was no more cases than about 120. So the use of masks is important, and we are happy that finally the WHO was as well announcing it, and different countries, even without or before this decision, were supporting it, that there are studies coming out that they in a way are supporting it. One important thing about the mask, once I put it on, I set it on, it's seated on the face. It's not to remove, it's not to change, it's not to touch. So when I'm going out of the room or of the flat, I'm putting the mask straight on my face. From that on, no mangling around, no touching, no adjustments. It has to stay as it was. Usually we don't plan anything that takes longer than probably 2 hours, or in worst case 3 hours. If you don't need to go to work, we don't necessarily take it off. If you go to work, then only if you have nicely cleaned and washed hand, then we touch the mask, preferably with one finger. You might just utilize one of the fingers that you prefer. Or if you really need to take it off for any reason, like, I don't know, when I was walking with my children, there was a time when we didn't have high number of infection rates. Then we went for hiking. Then I was teaching the children, if you really need to take it off because you're very thirsty and we need to stop in the 2-hour hike that we do or plan, then you take off, you hold it with that one finger and you don't touch it again. So then I helped them with clean hands to insert it back, and that was it. But the most important part was that the mask has to be handled with clean hands. If for whatever reason, being at work or any other reasons, you need to put the mask away, the best way is to fold it. Yeah, to fold it. You fold inside out. And that's the way we also throw it. If it's a surgical mask, inside out. Sorry for that. So we try to fold it inside out and keep in the garbage. So the outside is prevented. We don't even throw it in any open garbage. We throw it in a covered garbage bin, so that it's not giving reason for any infection to anybody. So we always, if you take it off, one thing, to wash immediately. If you cannot wash immediately, put it in a plastic bag inside out and keep it there. If I need to use probably more than one mask, because it's, let's say, a surgical mask, then I try to change and use another one in a couple of hours. If I cannot, which happens, then I try to use just anything that covers from the front. We often actually reuse masks. It might not be very good, but what we do, or what I see people do very often, is that they put an additional layer over it, which is washable. So that makes actually the other one to be a little bit more lasting. The important thing, they often say that these should not be wet. They shouldn't be molding from inside. So that's why it's recommended that surgical masks are thrown away in about every 4 hours, because they got moist and they won't protect you. Yeah, the point is not necessarily to protect from the outside effect, they protect from myself. But if I'm not touching, we kind of understand that it might be still a way of protection. On the other hand, this needs to be very carefully handled.